Hello.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
I'm pulling up on our registration right now. So we have about 41 students who registered for today. So we'll see how many will attend. Do any of you have a preference who would like to get started first, or
I'm going to go first.
okay?
You want me to try sharing my screen?
Yeah, let's do that.
How does that look?
Yeah, perfect. I can see it.
Excellent. Do you want me to keep it shared? Or...
If you want, I'm just gonna do a little introduction before we get started. And then if you want, we can just pull it up once I introduce you too.
That works.
So we'll just wait until exactly 4 o'clock before we get started, and I'll let the students in.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, I'm gonna start letting it in.
A conversation as guys. So your fiance that you just went on one.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our genetics programs webinar. So we're just waiting for a couple more people to join us. Then after that, we can just get started. I think good. Okay, there we go. Okay, so hello, thank you for joining us again. So we have Emily Quinn for the program director for Master of Science in Human Genetics and Genetic Counseling. And we have Dr. Barbara Fortini, who is the program director for our Master of Science in Human Genetics and Genomic Data Analytics. If you want to introduce yourself before we get started, we can. If after that, we can just go ahead and do our overviews.
Yep, I'm Emily. I am the program director for the genetic counseling program. Really excited for all of you to be here today.
And I'm Barbara Fortini. I am the program director for the MSGDA program, but I also teach genetic counseling students in our first year coursework where I teach human molecular genetics and human genomics. So I also am excited to be here today.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. We can just get started with our first overview with our genetic counseling program.
All right. Are you able to see my slides okay?
Yes.
Excellent. So as I mentioned, I'm Emily. I'm the program director of the genetic counseling program here. And for those of you who aren't familiar about what genetic counseling is and who genetic counselors are, we are health educators and advocates who have training in molecular genetics as well as counseling theory and methodology. With this training, we are able to guide and support patients seeking more information about inherited diseases, how inherited diseases and conditions may affect themselves or as well as their families. And genetic counselors have existed in a few what we would consider more traditional areas of practice, such as prenatal and preconception, pediatrics, cancer, and then general adult genetics. But we also are seeing genetic, and if you were to go and speak with genetic counselors, many of those who you speak with who are in clinical practice are probably working in one of these 4 core specialties. But we do see expanding areas of subspecialty, including cardiology, neurology, psychiatry. What I say now is any area of subspecialty, we know that there are genetic contributors to those diseases. And I think that what we will continue to see is more expansion of genetic counselors and genetic counseling services across the healthcare specialties with just more time and training of genetic counselors. So as for the non-clinical roles, there are a number of genetic counselors who have really fulfilling careers in industry, and they may work at a variety of different genetic testing laboratories. They may work with those laboratories to do business, marketing, product development. They may act as medical science liaison where their clients are physicians or physician assistants, nurse practitioners who are also ordering the genetic tests. There are genetic counselors who have active careers in variant interpretation, so making better sense of how those different changes in our DNA code can manifest in disease, as well as genetic counselors that work in research. And then, of course, I'm here speaking to you as the program director. I had a clinical practice previously, but for the last 4 years have been working in education and leadership. So a little bit about our program. We emphasize interprofessional collaboration, problem solving, and personalized patient care. Our program is dedicated to benefiting society through the education, training, and development of innovative, culturally engaged, articulate, and caring genetic counselors who will serve the needs of the individual patients, healthcare system, and the bioscience industry. So how do we do this? I'm going to provide just a really brief overview, bird's eye view of our curriculum. Our students take a total of 69 credits throughout the 21 months that they are enrolled in our program. About half or 31 of those credits are what we would consider to be really that rigorous, traditional didactic or in the class coursework. There are another 26 credits that students get for fulfilling their fieldwork or their rotation requirements. And then the remaining 12 credits are those specifically geared towards supporting students as they work on their capstone projects. And I'll speak more about that a little later. Year one of the course is of the program is very course heavy. So all students in the first year of the program are in person in Claremont at KGI taking courses. We do have an experiential education course that takes place throughout the first year of the program, where students do have the opportunity to do a little bit of clinical observation, and as well as we have workshops and guest lectures from a variety of different clinical specialties. But really, year one of the program is where you're getting just the fundamental foundation that you need to then move into your rotations. So starting the summer between year one and year two, students begin their rotation placements, and many students are in Southern California but may choose to go elsewhere for their summer rotation. And then year two of the program, students are working largely on their rotations, on their capstones, with just a few courses sprinkled throughout the year two of the program. And the content that's covered, we have courses that are that cover our genetic and genomic principles. So this is how we ensure that our students have a strong understanding of how the science works. We have our genetics and healthcare courses, which are more specifically tailored to educating students about how clinical genetics exists within a variety of healthcare specialties. We have our genetic counseling in practice courses. So these capture how to communicate complex genetics concepts in these healthcare settings. This is a big part of what we do. We have our professional development series where our students practice their public speaking skills. They also work to prepare themselves for the American Board of Genetic Counseling exam that students take after they graduate, which is a big certification exam that students from any program will take after graduation to demonstrate that they are able to practice as a genetic counselor. Students also, we have a series of the course credits, as I mentioned, that encompass our capstone project, and I've got a slide to talk a little bit more specifically about that. And then, of course, our clinical field work placements. And I do have some slides to also just address what our current clinical field work placements look like currently. So here is a snapshot of year one of the program, just listing out the different courses that students take. So there are 17.5 credits that students take during the fall. Just so you know, our semesters start at the very end of August and go through the first few weeks of December. And then students have a break and come back the day after Martin Luther King Day for the spring semester, which goes into early May. And here we have our genetic counseling 1 course, which is one of our fundamental genetic counseling and practice courses. We have our human molecular genetics and genetic disease mechanisms courses. Those encompass our genetic and genomics principles courses. Human molecular genetics, I will tell you, is taught by Dr. Fortini, who will be speaking to you a bit later about MSGDA. Students are enrolled in a public health course as well as an embryology course to better understand. You need to understand how a human develops to better understand where there may be, if someone has a genetic condition, different changes that can lead to different development. Students have our case conference and journal club series throughout year 1 and year 2 of the program. So that's something that our first and second year students do combined. Our students take clinical biostats as well as research methodology to help them with their capstone projects. And then, as I had mentioned earlier, they do get 1 credit for the genetic counseling fieldwork observation, where they may observe in clinic and attend different workshops, guest lectures. We also have students listening to podcasts and engaging in discussions about that. In the spring, students return and they take Genetic Counseling 2, which is, again, just our core fundamental genetic counseling course. GC1 and GC2 are taught by me, the program director. They take Human Genomics, which is taught by Dr. Fortini. And then this is where students begin to have more of those genetics in healthcare courses. So clinical cancer genomics, medical genetics, biochemical genetics, pharmacogenomics, really, really, really rich and specialized material that's taught here. Students continue with their Case Conference Journal Club, research methodology, and fieldwork observation. So that is, about half of the credits all taking place in year 1 of the program. Year 2, as I mentioned, that's summer spanning year 1 to year 2. Students begin their rotations, and the exact dates of the rotation vary from site to site and student to student, but we do make sure that students do get a vacation in sometime between year 1 or year 2 of the program. If you spoke to any of our students, they will tell you you need that break after getting through that really didactic, rigorous coursework year 1 of the program. And the rotations that students are on, it really mimics that of a full-time job where we say, go be in clinic 5 days a week, for 8 hours each day. So that for kind of traditional 40-hour work week, anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. So students really feel, okay, that summer, they are beginning to really see what the day in the life of a genetic counselor is. And then year 2, as I mentioned, it's much lighter on the didactic coursework. Once about every 3 weeks, students take the psychosocial development and professional development courses that span year 1 of the program. Also, I've spanned year 2 of the program. Also in year 2, students begin to do a boards review course so that even though they aren't taking all of those didactic courses, they're still our students are still in the mindset of thinking about how to take exams, because this is such a big, crucial thing that students do after they complete the program. Students are working independently on their capstone projects. So year 1 of the program in research methodology, they are beginning to think about their projects and identify their capstone committees. And in year 2 of the program, they are carrying out their research, analyzing their data, and ultimately writing their findings up and disseminating it. And then a big bulk of what's happening in year 2 of the program are the rotations. So there are 4 additional clinical rotations that happen in year 2 of the program that just follow sequentially. These are roughly about 7-week rotations that are about 3 days a week that students are, or about 24 hours a week that students are in their rotations for the whole second year of the program. So just to summarize and show this in a different way, year 1, largely didactic, in person in Claremont, taking the courses. But year 2 of the program, we have variation. So this is the first year that we decided to move the entire second year of the program to be virtual, so that students can be wherever they are for their clinical rotations. And when it comes time to attend classes, instead of having to come to Claremont once every 3 weeks, they can log in remotely and do the coursework from wherever it is that they are locating. We felt that this was a really important move to make sure that the access to education was the same for all students, whether or not they ultimately stayed in the Claremont area during the second year of the program versus are going elsewhere. We wanted to make sure that it was equitable. And so for year 2, we have 2 different tracks that students can match into. So this is the decision that students make before they even come to KGI, is they say, do I want year 2 of the program to be in Southern California? And do I want to find housing either in the Claremont area or in Los Angeles or Orange County or wherever it is that students choose to be? And it's a total of 16 tracks, 16 slots that we have that students can match into to be in a Southern California based rotation for the entire second year of the program. And then 4 students match into what we call our travel or our flexible track, which may mean that they may have some rotations in Southern California, but also they have the opportunity to go elsewhere outside of Southern California. And I'll talk a little bit about where we have some of our affiliations. We just are in the second year right now of having students on the travel track, and they've been going all over the place. So let's talk about where some of these places are. So for Southern California, We have students that rotate through a variety of different clinical sites as well as industry sites. That's something that we feel like is really distinguishing ourselves at KGI, is that we are an institute with very strong industry connections. We have students that are for industry, you can see here Fulgent Genetics as well as Color. We have students at Quest Diagnostics, students that are involved in with the company GeneScreen. We also have students that rotate through we have a wealth of clinical sites in Southern California, including Children's Hospital Los Angeles, as well as Children's Hospital Orange County. Students get to rotate through the entire Kaiser Permanente Center down here, USC Cancer Norris Center, as well as City of Hope. We have students that do a variety of different specialty rotations at Cedars-Sinai. And where are these rotations located in Southern California? Because Southern California is vast, and I think this map really shows exactly how expansive it is. So while many of our sites do center around the greater Los Angeles area, because that's where many of these healthcare centers are, we do have students that go as far south as San Diego for their rotations, as well as far north as Santa Barbara. And while some of these opportunities may be remote, sometimes it does require a temporary relocation to, let's say, the San Diego area for about 7 weeks. And so students who have done that may rent an Airbnb, or if they have connections down there, to temporarily stay with someone so that they aren't necessarily doing that really long commute back up to the Los Angeles area and down to San Diego those 3 days. The Santa Barbara rotation opportunity before the pandemic was an in-person opportunity, and we had students going to Santa Barbara, but for the last few years since the pandemic, that rotation opportunity has been entirely remote. And I don't believe there's plans to change that. So for any of you that are interested in our travel track, we have affiliate sites in Nevada, in Las Vegas, Nevada, in New Mexico. We have sites in Northern California, such as the San Francisco Bay Area, as well as Sacramento. And we have sent students to all of these sites. No one yet has taken us up on the opportunity to practice with the one genetic counselor who is in Anchorage, Alaska, but that is an opportunity. And then last year, we had the pleasure of sending 2 students that were on the travel track during their spring semester to practice in Hawaii, which they both really delighted in doing so. But again, while we had everyone else in person in Claremont for classes and they were dialing in from Hawaii, it just really wasn't the best fit, where they didn't have the same access to education. So we decided, you know what, this hybrid model isn't working. Let's move the entire second year of the program to be remote. And so far it's been really successful, because our students really do appreciate that ability to not have to think about traffic and traveling in Southern California. This is a program where if you are in the Southern California base track, you do need a car because our rotations really do just span the area. Shifting gears to our capstone project, this is a 2-year student-led project where year 1 of the program, students are working on their literature reviews, coming up with their topics of interest, identifying members of their capstone committee, thinking about the methodologies that are appropriate to use for the research questions that they have. And then the goal is at the end of year 1 for students to be submitting their projects to the Institutional Review Board, or the IRB, which is the governing body that gives the stamp of approval and says, yes, you can go conduct human subjects research. Year 2 of the program, and really starting this summer between year 1, year 2, students are getting their IRB approval and then begin to carry out their research. They are collecting data and then ultimately analyzing those data and writing up the results. So the end goal at KGI, we have students submit a manuscript at the end of the program and also put together a poster to present. And we also have students present their research findings orally at a genetic symposium that we have. And this symposium we've had the last few years has been virtual, and it's been an attractive thing because students' capstone committees really span the country, or even there have even been international capstone advisors. And so having it be virtual has allowed for everyone to have access to our students' presentations. And then nationally, after the program, we encourage our students to submit their abstract to a national conference. So that might be the National Society of Genetic Counselors Conference. Every year, we also have a Southern California Genetic Counselors Conference that students have presented their research findings at. And then for those students with really high quality projects, we encourage them to submit their manuscripts to a peer-reviewed journal so that they can further disseminate and share their wealth of knowledge that they garnered through their projects. And so a little just taste of what some of the topics have included thus far that students have been working on. Topics related to cultural engagement, inclusion and equity, access to care, pharmacogenomics. I think being embedded within a school of pharmacy and health sciences, really, there have been a few of our students who have really taken advantage and leveraged those connections at KGI to do some really meaningful studies there. Some students have been really interested in better exploring the genetic counseling admissions process, which I'm sure is of interest to many of you who are prospective genetic counseling students, what really all goes into those decisions of admissions. And then one thing that we also have shifted with our capstone project, while to date, most of our students have still decided to do original research projects, and much of what I've described here describes what a project, what original research projects look like at KGI. With the capstone requirement, we also have the ability, if we have a student who just knows, you know what, research just really isn't my thing, and I'd rather do something else, we have been able to help with partnering those students with sites that are looking to write up really interesting case studies or case series and just need that extra human power that a student's really well equipped to do some of the background research about, you know, whatever it is that they're writing up, and actually doing that legwork to write up those case studies. And it's been a real win-win, where the people who are supervising the project, they get a publication out of it. And then of course our students get a publication out of it. We've also had some students who have done quality improvement projects or other educational projects that aren't necessarily original research studies, but are still having a meaningful impact with clinicians and patients. So who should apply? We are looking for individuals who want to combine a passion for science and direct patient care, to be on the forefront of personalized genomic medicine, to interface with testing laboratories and the biotech industry, to work in a rapidly evolving field and engage in the field as lifelong learners. And why do we think we're special at KGI? Well, we are one of the 7 Claremont colleges, which means that our students have access to the resources of the Claremont colleges. So while KGI may feel like may have that real small school feel, and it very much does, we still have all of the access and resources of a larger institution, such as our library services or our student health services. In particular, mental health, I feel like, especially during the pandemic, has been a concern for many, and we have really great counselors that work within the Claremont College consortiums that are accessible to our students. So we think that our location and the rotation opportunities we have really distinguishes ourselves. So while it may be that students who are in Southern California are really traveling to different spaces throughout the area, it also means that they're getting a really diverse, they're getting a diverse opportunity to see how genetic counseling works at a variety of different clinics, working with very different populations throughout those clinics. One thing that we do a little differently at KGI is we are an institution that embraces the flipped classroom or active learning, where much of the initial grasping of the material, instead of sitting in a class and being lectured to, you are initially working with the material on your own. So that may be through reading or listening to pre-recorded lectures. And the idea is that you can, at your own pace, take a pause to shore up perhaps a genetics concept that that maybe never quite gelled or clicked with you when you first learned it, or maybe it was just a long time ago that you took that course. do the education you need, ask the questions, maybe you ask your classmates, and then continue to revisit and learn the material on your own time. If there's an area that you're really savvy in, you can kind of speed through that section instead of, perhaps listening, comprehensively to the whole 20 minutes. And then when you come to class, you apply the information. So active learning, it's a lot of in-class activities that students are doing to really make better sense of the material. Dr. Fortini will talk about the MSGDA program next, so I won't spend much time here, but I will say that I love that our program is the sister program of the MSGDA program. Our students take a lot of the same core genetics curriculum together, and I think having students of both disciplines in the classroom really leads to an engaging classroom discussion and overall experience. Many of the courses that students take in our program are taught by genetic counselors who are currently still in practice in those fields of specialty. So we have genetic counselors from City of Hope that teach our clinical cancer genomics classes. We have genetic counselors who specialize in metabolics teaching our biochemical genetics courses. So you're getting really timely to-date information in these courses by people who are living and breathing the lives of these genetic counselors working these jobs. We do have 2 scholarships available for students. One is our diversity scholarship, which is actually a separate match track in our program. So I'd mentioned there were 16 available slots to be in the Southern California based program. One of those 16 is the diversity scholarship. And so this is a separate match track where if you are a student who has a racial or gender identity that is not represented currently very well in the genetic counseling field, and just for anyone who isn't familiar with the field, genetic counseling has historically been dominated by people who are white women. That is a demographic I fit into, and we at KGI recognize we need to shake up that norm so that we are recruiting and training and graduating genetic counselors who better represent the patient populations that we're serving. So anyone who doesn't identify as a white woman is welcome to apply to be matched into the diversity track. And there's some money that comes with that. And then any students who don't match into the diversity track are able to apply for a cultural engagement scholarship. And we award that to 1 student each year, and that's through an essay. And then finally, the last thing I will mention is just that we are still a relatively new program. We graduated our first cohort in 2020, so we're on track to graduate our 4th cohort this year. And our program looks so much different today than it did when it first opened, and that is in direct response to so much student feedback from what was working, what wasn't working. And that is something that we want to continuously doing. We want to always be in this continuous state of evolvement so that we are better meeting the needs of the learners that are enrolled in our institution, as well as being adaptive to the changes that are happening in our profession, because they are happening every day. So we feel like our students really make just such a difference, and every single one of our alumni, you can speak to them and they can, and most if not all of them will say that they see how their feedback really did get implemented into change here. So I will just give one very quick plug, unless, and I don't know, Dr. Fortini, if you had this too, that if you are interested in joining us this summer and learning more about both the genetic counseling program and the MSGDA program, and want to get your feet wet with clinical genetics and bioinformatics, we do have a summer course, and I have the link right there, and we can also put it in the chat. But with that, I will just leave my contact information. We're going to hold questions until after Dr. Fortini's presentation and answer all at the end. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Emily, for that wonderful description of the GC program. I'm going to tell you about the sister program, MSGDA, and for some things it is the exact same coursework, so I will try not to be too redundant, but I hope that you'll see the overlap and how these two programs complement each other. Just to give you all some context, because I'm sure some of you have never heard of genomic data analytics. Our program was started the same year that we started the genetic counseling program at KGI. So they really were designed from the very beginning to work together and to fit two different career paths, but again, with people who love genetics and want to make an impact on the world using genomics knowledge. And so as we talk about this program, I hope that you, even if you've always thought maybe you want to be a genetic counselor, to perhaps reflect on why it is that you're excited about this profession, and just ask yourself if perhaps genomic data analytics is a better fit for you. Not that we don't love our genetic counselor colleagues. And so I'm assuming everyone on this Zoom is interested in personalized or precision medicine, doing medicine better. But perhaps you're also interested in drug development using genetics and genomics. A lot of drugs of the future will be gene therapies. And so really understanding how these work. Maybe if you're interested in the development of new clinical genetic or genomic tests that have better diagnostic yield or are more effective at predicting what's wrong with someone. If you're interested in developing direct-to-consumer genomics products, there are a lot more products on the market today than there were in the past. And so there are opportunities to invent the next 23andMe style test. And also using big data to advance health. So we sometimes get very focused on single patients, but we can also try to improve global health and public health using these big data sets that are available. So I'm hoping that at least one of these things kind of perked your attention. And because this is such an important part of the future of medicine, we did want to start this program. We are in our 5th year. And it was developed from the ground up to meet the needs of the genomics industry. And so as students, you might not know how big the clinical genomics industry is, because you don't often hear about these companies because they work behind the scenes. But California really is the epicenter of the clinical genomics world on the West Coast. And so there are tons of companies that need people to help them interpret the data that are being generated in these genetic tests, and to make better tests and better tools to help practitioners like genetic counselors be more efficient with their time. And so in order to prepare people for these kind of roles, our degree provides a very strong foundation in human genetics. I have a PhD in genetics, so I'm always going to start with science. But then we're going to couple that with bioinformatics skills and our industry experience that KGI has been known for years, to know the difference between maybe academic style research and industry style research. And all of this will prepare students to work at either clinical genomics labs, research centers, biotech startups, pharmaceutical companies. Like at every scale, people are using genomics. And this will only become more important as we sort of enter this age of precision and personalized medicine. So the real strengths that I think distinguish the MSGDA program from other programs are the foundational coursework in human genetics, but then adding on those applied life science courses and genomics curriculum to make it really a program that was designed for the future. We didn't just add a couple of classes to an existing degree that we've had for decades. It was started from a blank sheet of paper to really think about what were the skills that are going to be needed 5 years from now or 10 years from now with how fast genomics is changing. The other thing that's really cool about the MSGDA program and KGI is not just what you learn, but who you learn with. And so you'll be taking classes in the first year with future genetic counselors. So if you go work at a genetics testing company, when someone calls on the phone for help interpreting one of your results, it might be one of your classmates that you have known for years, because it is a community that works together. You also have the opportunity to take classes with some of the other KGI programs like the Masters of Science or the Masters of Business in Science. And so you'll start to make other connections that might be like in the marketing department or in regulatory affairs. If you have a question about, some other scientific device, you can maybe call someone you met who's in the device engineering program. So it gives you that opportunity to build your professional network with a very diverse group of colleagues, even as a student. So just like the GC program, we are a 21-month program, and it's roughly the same amount of units. Again, the first year is pretty much all didactic, meaning that you're going to be in the classroom in more traditional courses, even though we teach in the flipped model. And then in the summer, between your first and second year, you would do an internship. And these internships are paid, and they are usually paid quite well because by the end of your first year, you'll have a lot of skills that are very much in demand in the industry right now. And then in your second year, it's kind of a mix of taking some of the MSGDA specific second year courses. You'll also be working on your capstone. So we'll talk about the experiential side in just a few slides. But you do also get to declare a concentration and pick out 6 credit hours worth of electives. So it's usually 2 or 3 courses where you can tailor your degree towards your future career interest. So these courses can be divided into a few different sections. We have the core genetics courses, and those are the same ones that Emily just told you about for the first year GC curriculum on the genetic side. So human molecular genetics with me, genetic disease mechanisms with Dr. Bayless, human genomics, again, that's one that I teach, and then taught by our genetic counseling professionals, the cancer genomics, medical genetics, and biochemical genetics. And very exciting because we are in a school of pharmacy and health science, we do have a dedicated pharmacogenomics course, which is again a very hot area in genomics. At the same time, you'll be taking some courses at the Riggs School. Those are with our Masters of Science students and our Masters of Business and Science students. One of those is the Intro to Bioscience Industry, and that is a MSGDA favorite because you get to sort of to peek behind the curtain of how things go from concept to an actual product that you can make money on. And if you're going to work at a company designing new diagnostics or new assays, you really need to understand how the business side of these things work. And in this course, you do get to do a project with a company, and the instructor for this course does take an effort to make sure there's some genomics companies that are participating in that. We also have clinical biostats, and then we have our first of our programming classes, and this is a bioinformatics in R class. We do teach both Python and R in the curriculum, and if you've never taken any computer science and you're super intimidated by that, just know that we teach them from the very basics because we have people every year that have zero experience at all with programming. And so we do have in our programming for the bioscience course that's taught by the same person that teaches Harvey Mudd freshmen how to do some coding at one of our sister colleges. And the bioinformatics in R is taught by a specialist that knows they're teaching people who have never used R before. If, however, you have a strong computer science background, we do have projects built into the course. So you'll be able to do some fun stuff and really tailor your skills towards bioinformatics. So if you've already done some programming and you feel comfortable with that, you will have the opportunity to do some really great projects. Other classes, clinical trial design, papers in applied medicine, and healthcare ethics. Again, in addition to sort of rounding out the education, gives you an opportunity to meet students from other programs. The MSGDA specific courses are sprinkled in the first year, but mostly in the second year. I just mentioned the programming for the biosciences class. That is a fall 1 course, so you take that right out of the gate. It's in Python. In the spring semester of the first year, we do have the genomics NGS lab course that goes along with the genomics didactic course. So both GC and GDA students are going to take genomics together, but the genomics data analytics students get a lab where they actually play with some raw data and do some of the analyses that we learn about in class. In the second year, we have 2 very important marquee courses that really get you ready for a job. And the first is our DNA sequencing and variant analysis class. And that's a full semester where we teach you all of the ways to interpret variants if you were taking the role of a genomic scientist. So we learned germline variant interpretation, gene curation, somatic variants, and mitochondrial variants. So we get you ready to work, knowing all the guidelines and the standard procedures. We also give you access to some really cool proprietary software projects that are used in clinics. And so these are really expensive programs that are AI-driven, automated assistance programs that help you use precision medicine type of analyses on patient files. And so one of the things that our program has prioritized is making friends with the companies that make those software products. And so we give you access as a second-year student. So you already know how to use the tools when you start your job. The other course is the genomic data visualization and management. That is, again, a Python course, and that's geared towards students who are going to go into careers that are more development, bioinformatics, data science based. So again, brushing up on those Python skills, but also learning to represent genomic data sets if you're really interested in that kind of big data type of question. Then we also have genomic knowledge translation. That is a communication course that helps you tell people. So we fill your head with all this genomics knowledge for 2 years, and then we get you ready to talk to people who have no idea what any of this is. And learning how to translate your research and your capstone project and your courses into things that you can talk about when you're meeting with other professionals or you're going on job interviews, that kind of thing. And then the last course on this list is very close to my heart. It's functional genomics. I teach this one also. I joke that it's putting the fun back in functional genomics because we talk about research style genomics and the very cutting edge things that are going on the research side. It may be a decade before any of these become real gene therapies or real products that are used in clinical medicine. But I think it's fun to just know what the cutting edge of research is, and to decide if you maybe wanted to go the research route instead of an industry route. So those courses on the first 3 hexagons are all required. Everybody in the program takes them. But then we do have our concentrations and the capstone, which is the experiential. So the 3 concentrations we have now are clinical decision support, clinical trial design, and assay development. You choose your concentration at the end of your first year. And we do make sure to give you a little taste of each of these in the first year, so you can really kind of dig into some projects and have some exposure to decide what is really exciting. Clinical decision support is our most popular concentration, and that is for people who want to go into these clinical genomic scientist roles, where you'll work with patient data, trying to figure out how to get them a better treatment option or a better diagnosis. And some examples of popular courses in this concentration are the embryology class that all the genetic counseling students take. And then medical terminology is very popular because you have to start reading electronic healthcare records. And that means you have to be able to understand the notes that the doctors are putting into the records. So that one has been very popular. If you're more interested in sort of the future of drug design and clinical trials and how, if you want to do gene therapies, or if you're just understanding these days, regular drugs have geneticists involved in designing all of the trials because you don't want to accidentally discover a genetic effect instead of a drug effect. This is our concentration for you. And so some examples of courses you could take are a pharmaceutical discovery and development series or biotechnology-based therapeutics. And the last concentration is for our entrepreneurs who want to make the next great product and take over the market share from 23andMe. And this is our assay development track. And again, some examples you might take would be intro to food and drug law, so you understand how to get something approved so you don't get in trouble, or our advanced in vitro diagnostics. And again, you select 6 credit hours during the second year to fulfill your concentration. The other really important part of our program is to get your hands dirty and start working on some of these projects in real life to sort of build up these skills. And so we have 2 opportunities for that. The first is the internship. That's full-time, 10 weeks in the summer. And the second is the capstone project, which is your whole second year, 6 credit hours. So that's 15 to 18 hours a week that you work on your project. And you can either do it at the same site and on the same project, or you can do it at 2 different sites. So you can do your internship at a company and maybe your capstone at a cancer center or something like that. If you do your project at the same site, that means when you graduate, you have both a 2-year degree and 1 year of work experience. So it's kind of a 2-for-1 benefit of that. And these are some examples of places where students have worked in the last few years. We've had students at Fabric Genomics, St. Jude, Rady Children's Hospital, City of Hope, NIH. You know, it can be either a small company, a big company, a cancer center, an academic lab. As long as you're working with human data and you're doing some of the analysis yourself, we can make sure the project meets the requirements of the program. And here are just a few titles of capstone projects that students have completed in the last few years. In our first year, we had several students who worked with the Rare Genomics Institute, and one person made a natural language processing algorithm that could read PDF files and pull out HPO terms, which was a huge help to people who were recurating their genomes. We had one person who was using Pacific Bio long read sequencing, trying to make that a clinical product. That was for LabCorp. They're working at a LabCorp research institute trying to develop a new product. We had someone who did AI sensitivity for detecting variants in newborn screening. We had a person working on the problem of genetic variants from underrepresented minorities in our genomics data sets. It's a very well-known fact that we have a lot of problems with our reference data sets because the people that provided samples are primarily of European origin. So for people who aren't of European origin, how we need to update our databases so that they can be more useful and relevant for interpreting their data. And we also had students who were working on liquid biopsies. So these are circulating free tumor DNA products that are trying to detect cancer earlier. So a wide variety of types of projects that meet the requirements for the capstone. So what can you do with this GDA degree? I think that was the question in the chat. So the job that 60% of our graduates have is to be a clinical variant scientist or a variant curator. Could be also a clinical genomic scientist. They work for either a testing company or a hospital that has their own in-house sequencing team to take patient data, interpret it, and then write reports or work with a group of doctors and genetic counselors to understand what's going on in that patient. What are their pathogenic variants? So what is responsible for their condition, or what should be the treatment path with this kind of genetic data? A related but slightly different role that some students have is being a genomic data analyst. And there you might work for a research group that would be analyzing, let's say, a large cohort of people that all have diabetes, or they'd be working on cardiovascular disease. And so this is mostly research groups or hospitals or even biotech companies that are trying to find new treatments or new biomarkers. So it's not that you're working with one patient data, but you're working with big data sets to try to make sort of discoveries that can be useful. Another option would be to just be a research scientist in an academic lab. So if you really want to specialize in something, you could be the in-house expert that would sort of blend genomic knowledge and bioinformatics skills to work with a specific disease or patient population. And this is great if you really want to work in a small team, in a small group on the same types of projects for many years. This could be a really exciting role. And then we also have what I like to call emerging careers, things that are just starting to become a thing. But of course, a lot of the development in biology and biotech right now is based on genomics. So the genetic ancestry companies are always launching new projects. We have health and wellness consulting, so trying to prevent illness as opposed to responding to illness, interpreting consumer genomics. And there are so many startups right now that are focused on genetic engineering and trying to make new gene therapies. And they all need people with MSGDA style skills. And the last I'll say is if you want to use this as a stepping stone to another degree. So we have had students in the past go on to medical school after getting their master's in genomic data analytics, which I love because medicine is going to be precision medicine and doctors don't learn that much genetics. It's actually quite shocking how little genomics that they know when they graduate. You could also decide to get a PhD, that you love research and you really want to use this to change how any of this is done. So you could get a PhD in genomics or in bioinformatics. And we have one student right now, former student, who's getting her PhD in bioinformatics at UCSF. Or if you wanted to take it a different route and become like a policy analyst or work in a governmental organization, to use your knowledge to make better choices for government and laws. And as all of these technologies mature, we're going to have to mature our regulatory space as well. So we have amazing alumni. We're a little short on time, so I won't talk about all of them, but we have people who have been hired by the place they did their internship. We also have companies that, while they didn't hire the person who did their internship, hired someone from KGI because they were introduced. We have 5 variant analysts at Genomenon. This is like 20% of our graduated alumni. Genomenon is a very cool company that does AI genomics. We also have 3 people who now work as molecular pathology variant curators at City of Hope. So they work with a pathologist, and we even have 2 students doing their capstone there at the same time. So there's lots of different opportunities. It's a little bit different for applications than for GC. We do have rolling admissions. So our information is on the website, but you're encouraged to apply early. We can make a decision early. We can even make a scholarship decision early. And then if you want to apply for both GC and GDA, it does not at all hurt your application with either one. And we'll work with you, and you can decide which program you'd rather be a part of if you end up accepted to both. And I will again plug our summer program. And I do see someone on the call here that is an alum of our summer program. So please, if you're interested at all and want to learn more, the best way to learn more is through spending a week with me and Emily. All right, so with that, I will share my contact information, but I'll also put it in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much for both of you to present your programs. If any of you have any questions, you're more than welcome to unmute yourself, or you can just go through the chat and then we'll just answer them through there.
So I do see the one about jobs. So I showed a little bit of examples of jobs, but we do have 100% employment for everyone who's graduated from MSGDA has a job in genomics or data analytics or something in a related field.
We have a
take the-
question here. Oh, you got it?
I can take that. In terms of getting experience employment prior to genetic counseling programs, what type of jobs do you suggest? So there are some folks who are able to get genetic counseling assistant jobs, and undoubtedly those are positions that give you that access to genetic counselors. You see the day in the life, and I think that they really do help a lot with preparation, but that is not the only way to become a genetic counseling student. And honestly, we have had students who were able to come and speak in their interviews about how the bartending and restaurant service experience that they had actually was directly applicable to many of the skills we utilize as genetic counselors, which is developing rapport and a connection with people very quickly, garnering trust, having really good communication skills. So really, I say that any experience that you have, as long as you can be mindful and think about, okay, how is it that this is something that I can apply to genetic counseling. So I don't like the idea of having cookie cutter applicants who all have the same experience. I think that that's the beauty of having a diverse group of students with different experiences in the classroom. Now, that being said, there are the prerequisites, right, of having some crisis intervention experience, and all of those are important. But anything other than that, just think about what it is that, about how it is that you can apply those skills.
We have a question. Can you do a dual degree in both programs?
So currently, no, but maybe one day in the future. But for anyone who's on the call right now, the answer is no, either GC or GDA. And then at what stage in the application interview process do you have to indicate which track you want or prefer on the GC program? So really great question. That is after you have interviewed at KGI. So we participate in the match system, as does every genetic counseling program. And with the match system, you submit a rank list that says, okay, I interviewed at these places, and this is the list in which I want to attend. And if you are someone who knows, I want to come to KGI, but I really only want to come if I can be in the Southern California based track, you would only rank that track. You wouldn't rank our travel flexible track, as well as vice versa. And there may be some who are really interested in coming, but they want the travel track and they put that first. And then maybe they put some other institutions and then our SoCal based track later. So there's no reason, you don't have to rank both. You can rank one or the other, and they can also be not right next to each other. And we never know what your rank list is. That's completely anonymized to us.
Caitlin, do you have a question? I see your hand is raised.
Hi, yes, I do have a question. So my name's Caitlin. I just graduated from UC Santa Cruz this past year, and I'm taking a gap year, and I'm interested in the genetic counseling program. I just want to ask if it is feasible, for either program to work while going to school, or is there like any room for that at all?
Yes, so we do have students who work throughout both year 1 and year 2 of the program. I think that you will hear some students say, yes, I do it and it's manageable. And you will hear other students who are not working that say, I don't know how my classmates do it. I'm plenty busy without it. But certainly for both our program, for both the GC program and the MSGDA program, it's not possible to have a full-time job. So it's definitely a part-time work commitment.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the one thing that's a bit different with GDA is when you're in your summer internship, that's full-time, but you are paid full-time. So you are earning money during the summer.
So we have a student here. Is crisis counseling required? I wasn't sure if other volunteer opportunities like working with people with disabilities, volunteering in clinical settings, etc., could replace that prereq.
So it doesn't have to be necessarily crisis counseling, but so it might be just, crisis intervention experience. So the experience I utilized when I was a prospective student is I was an RA in college. So I had some crisis intervention training as well as some experience. So without a doubt, working with populations that are affected with disability, there may be crisis, intervention experience you have through that. And you just need to be able to speak to how that fulfills that requirement. And if there was training that you received, and just to give a little bit of background about why we require that, so it's not every single hour of every single day worked as a genetic counselor is crisis intervention. It's not. However, it does happen. And the last thing we want is for someone being admitted to a program, spending a lot of money and energy being here, and then to realize this is too overwhelming for me. This isn't the right career for me. We want you to have some of that exposure before you come so that you can demonstrate I have this ability as well as the resilience, and my own coping skills to make this work.
Yeah.
Is there a fee waiver for applications? We do have fee waivers for applications. I actually am the admissions counselor for our genetics programs. Hello, my name is Yvette. But if you're like to get more information about the application process, the admission requirements, the prerequisites, you're more than welcome to email me. My email is my first name, iveth_cordon, CORDON @kgi.edu, and you can just email me with any questions. Again, with the fee waiver, fee waivers, you can just email me and we can help you out with that. And then,
I saw the question about from the individual who did the master's in genetics in India. So as long as you have satisfied the prerequisites for the program and are eligible to apply, you are eligible to apply. And Yvette and the admissions team are the best people to speak to, do these courses, fulfill the prerequisites.
I think there was another question maybe for you, Emily, on how to get a job in genetic counseling and what is the job market these days?
In terms of, okay, so I don't know if I even saw that question. Sorry if I missed it, but so what the jobs look like in genetic counseling these days. So most genetic counselors work either as clinical genetic counselors in a variety of different healthcare settings. So I had listed some of those at the beginning of my talk. Many also work in healthcare settings and their job may also have a research aim. There are some genetic counselors who work primarily in research, and then there's a large proportion of genetic counselors who do work in industry and work for genetic testing laboratories, doing a variety of different roles there.
okay, great. Thank you so much. So it is 5 o'clock already. So if you have any questions now, you can just go ahead and ask. If not, you're more than welcome to email the program directors, me, for any questions, and we can be able to answer that for you at a later date. Other than that, you're all free to go. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Yvette, for coordinating.
No problem. We'll set up another one later as well. So
Sounds good.
have a good evening, you guys.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.